Go. Good evening. This is the caucus meeting for October 11, 2023, council chambers. Presiding officer of the council, Milady Tejeda, wishes to advise the audience that notice of this meeting has been filed with the Home News Tribune, the Star Ledger, and posted on the bulletin board in the city clerk's office and on the city's website, indicating that today's meeting is being held in the council chambers, City Hall, 260 High Street, at 5:30. Now it's 5:37. And the council meeting will follow right after the caucus and the closed session. Council President Tejeda, as a courtesy of the governing body, I will ask all individuals present, including members of the audience, to please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. Should you need to make a telephone call, please go out into the hallway and speak in a low voice so as not to disturb the ongoing meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Cruz?
Present.
Councilwoman Morales?
She's excused.
Councilman Puccio?
Present.
Councilman Torres?
Present.
Council President Tejeda?
Present. Okay, we're having a presentation, Mayor citation to the following: Vicky Halifko Weber, founding member and vice president of the Woodbridge Elks Motorcycle Committee, number 2116, for humanitarian efforts. And the mayor is all yours.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, council members. Thank you for this opportunity. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is an amazing story, another great deed. So many great things happening in the city of Perth Amboy, and this is definitely one of them. I definitely need to acknowledge that Councilman Puccio was the one that brought this to our attention. Thank you, Councilman Puccio. I'm not sure if you want to say a few words now on how all this came about. But
you first, Mayor.
all right. It's an honor to give this mayoral citation to Vicky Halifko Weber. She is the vice president of the motorcycle club, vice president and founder of the motorcycle committee, Elks Club 2116. And Vicky witnessed Gloria, which Gloria is Ranger's wife, beautiful wife, and Ranger is our Special 2 police officer who has served the city of Perth Amboy for over 40 years. And that's a great accomplishment. Thank you, Ranger, for all you do. It's amazing that someone could give that amount of time to the city that they love, and you're definitely a great example of it. So, thank you, thank you. So, Vicky witnessed Gloria struggling to bring her handicapped son into a business. So, Vicky took it upon herself to go help her. After conversing with Gloria, Gloria, Ranger, please come up. That way I could present you with a mayoral citation. Yes, and you could have everyone come up. Yes, and thank you to each and every one of you. So This radio citation, Vicky, goes to you in recognition of your compassion, dedication, and community spirit. Your fundraising effort alongside the Motorcycle Committee Elks Club 2116, once again, raised over $70,000 in a short amount of time in only 2 months. So we extend our heartfelt gratitude and admiration. And thank you. Thank you, Becky. Also to the Motorcycle Committee Elks Club, in recognition of your efforts. Thank you, congratulations. This goes to the entire club. Hopefully, you will hang it up in your club. And again, a lot of great things are happening today for Dan Boy. This is another one. And to me, it's an honor to be here with each and every one of you. So thank you for that effort. And I'm sure the council feels the same way. Councilman Puccio.
Yes, we do.
You want to share a few
I'm
words?
gonna say a few words, but you know what?
Yeah, take
Should
the picture
probably
first.
stand up and go over
Yes.
there and do it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get on the mic, though. Which one? Oh, this mic. Okay, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you guys collectively for what you did for Ranger and his family and his son. Now, as Vicky, actually, a lot of people don't know, has her roots here in Pecan Boy. If you look at the Veterans Wall out there, there's Halifkos on that wall. That's Vicky's family. And, you know, I didn't know Vicky until about a year ago, but I heard about Vicky before I actually met her. She is a human dynamo. Whatever there is, whenever there is to help somebody, this woman is in the forefront at every turn. If it isn't Stephen, it's cancer. And even when she went through her own illness, it didn't stop her. We need more people in this world like Vicky Halifko. And the club. And a lot of her efforts, she can't do it without you guys. It's like you're a team. And on a side note, Vicky is also a committee woman in Woodbridge. Right? We saw her. And where's your mom? She was here sitting in the first row last time we were here. Pop. All right. Tell your mother I said hello. Thank you. And, you know, on a side note, it wasn't about a year ago that Vicky and I found out we're related. So, but with that said, Vicky, on behalf of Council President and the rest of the council members and the mayor, we thank you for what you did for the Soroka family. Thank you.
I just really want to say that, I mean, you guys are a blessing to me. Anybody that we help we're just really so honored to be part of it. But I'm just the name of the person who started the committee. It's these people that are behind me that I don't consider just committee members. They're my family. And I'm just so lucky to have like-minded people around me that we can get together when we put our mind to something. And we don't just like doing it, we love doing it. So I thank you for the recognition. And really what that means to us is that other people could see it and other people could just help other people whenever you see it. I mean, there's just so many, we're watching the news nowadays, and there's so much horrible things that we see. But I choose to think that the majority of us would rather help, and we're all kind people. And so I'm just blessed to have this family around me. So thank you guys, and thank you. I love you guys, and thank you to the council here.
So we're right here first, right here? And then we're gonna bring Kevin and Carlos.
I'm sorry, we were having some difficulties, technical difficulties, so now we're back on the meeting, the caucus meeting of October 11. Now we're going topics for discussion, caucus meeting, update and unsafe illegal housing. This was like an update from the last time, and our director from Code Enforcement is here to give us an update.
Yes, it's the KPIs. You want me to read them or?
So what I did, I brought the KPIs year to date. I have copies here. I'm gonna pass it to you guys. And if you guys have any questions,
Okay.
I'm here.
I'd like to thank the council for continuing with these hearings. Today, I kind of wanted to address, since we've heard from you in the past, and we've heard what your department is able to do. Today, I kind of wanted to address more on the enforcement end, not so much on the code enforcement, but our main enforcement, most likely the police enforcement, and their quality of life task force, and how that has been proceeding to address this issue. Recently, there was an incident in Plainfield, and I think as most recently in the Oranges last week, where a large building was condemned due to unsafe living conditions. And it seemed that these buildings did not fall in the hands for the municipal code enforcement because of the amount of units it fell into the state's hand for
There were multiple
inspection.
dwellings.
Yes,
Yes.
for the inspection. And because of that, years had lapsed before there was proper inspections being done. But the Quality of Life Task Force in Plainfield, the chief of police was able, because they received complaints, where it was able to go into the building and find all of the violations and contacted the state. When this administration first came in and we hired the government strategy to come in to create their report, one of the things that it said that was very critical for us to address in the illegal housing problem was to have a quality of life task force that was going to address this regularly. So that's why today I kind of wanted to see of where does that stand, because I know where your limitations are or where you're unable to go into. But the police don't have some of those limitations that the code enforcement has.
So I guess you want an answer from the chief of police?
Most likely, yes. If he's in charge of the quality of life task force.
So what, like, before he comes up, we usually, every month, right, we send out the KPIs, and I know Mr. Green, the business administrator, send the KPIs to you guys. What I did on this, sheet, Excel sheet, I have year to date, so you could have an idea and see everything we do as far as code enforcement, UCC, housing, and zoning, the whole department for the code enforcement division. You look through it, whatever you need to know, just, I'm gonna be right here, if you have any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Irving, and thank you all the directors. I know with these KPIs, these key performance indicators, this is something that was new, that we brought to the city, and I thank all the directors for the work that you put in, and most importantly, the employees and your staff there, from the firemen to the police officers to the inspectors, and the DPW staff who put these numbers together for us to review. So when we're talking about the government strategies and the numbers that are reported and working together as a cohesive unit, the intent of that report is to make sure our different disparate agencies are working together. And I think that that's something that we brought together, we've seen. I'm proud of you for doing that. And more importantly, people say, well, how are you measuring that? I don't want to hear, Michael, that you're saying you're doing it. Let's see the numbers. And I think that's what brings the part here. So when we look, fire department referrals, police department referrals, so we have those objective numbers to see what you and your men are doing, men and women out there are doing for the residents. And so we see, and to your point, Irving, you see illegal housing reported, and for the month of September, there was 11 reports of it, but only 5 were confirmed. So each month, we're tracking these numbers objectively so people can see what the work is going on within each individual department. But to your question, you were saying, what does the police do? Because we say that for the police department referrals, there was 1 this time. But you want to know the powers of the police department versus a code enforcement?
Also, so there were 5 confirmed illegal housing. What happened?
Okay, so if you look on the month of September, right? It says illegal housing confirmed, it says 5. If you look underneath that, summons issue, right underneath that, so it's 5. So the first thing we do, once we find illegal housing, we issue a summons. We call the Department of Relocation. We have to relocate people, right? Then the zoning division gets involved if they have a bathroom that is illegal, right? They have to dismantle the bathroom, and they have to dismantle whatever we found as illegal conversion. And obviously, they have to wait for the court date, and they go in front of the judge. Now, there's cases that we have to relocate families. The city have to put up those people in the hotels. So what we do with Diane and her team, we get a bill from the hotel. And then when we go to court, we make sure the judge knows that those people need to pay the city back whatever the amount of the bill was, plus the fine that is up to the judge. It's not up to the court. I mean, up to court enforcement for the illegal housing. I just got to tell you that most of the cases for court enforcement we do once a month. Judge Gonzalez is on the bench, and he's very, very firm when it comes to illegal housing. Very firm.
So these 5 families had to were displaced and had to, now our resources, our human services has to now relocate these families. How much is the fine for the landlord for having these units?
Let me clarify something. Not just because there was 5 illegal housing, that doesn't mean that we have to relocate 5 families. Sometimes they have families that they go to their family home, so they don't stay.
That's a burden on their family. Just because they're able to go stay at some relative's sofa, sleep on a sofa or a floor somewhere, doesn't mean, no, the burden should still be on the landlord
Still.
for renting out that illegal housing.
Right, but we have to wait for the court date, which is once a month. So the cases for September, we're gonna hear those cases in the month of October.
So in the meet, so a family could be in a hotel for a month, and these landlords usually pay for the hotel, or does the city has to pick up the cost?
That's an answer for the enrollment, but I could tell you that most of the landlord do pay, and there's cases that the city have to put them in a hotel, not for the whole month, but Diane could probably answer better than me.
If you find a landlord that has an illegal unit, do you cross-check to see if they have other houses in this community?
We do.
And then you check those other properties also?
That is correct, we do.
Okay, good.
No problem.
Hi, Chief. So I was bringing up the case in Plainfield a couple of months ago, large building, Quality of Life Task Force under the Chief of Police in Plainfield was able to go into the building. And due to the large amount of violations, the state came in and condemned the building. But these conditions were going on for a while. But it seems that Quality of Life Task Force, that the Chief of Police was able to go into any unit as long as the tenant was okay with it and had a complaint.
I'm not familiar with exactly what happens over there, but as far if there may be a city ordinance that allows that to occur, but under the police side of things, we're very restrictive as to when we can enter someone's home. Under urgent or emergent situations, under community caretaking, we could forcibly enter our home and so forth if we need to. But for violations, for potential property code violations or those types of things, there's nothing that we have in criminal law or in city ordinance that would allow us to do that, only if it's an exigent circumstance.
Have you investigated other more progressive ordinances or communities to see if maybe we need to re-examine ours? Because in the past, your department has asked us to make changes or to add things. Do you have any recommendations, or what has been done since the government strategy report came out? What new, what new policies or what has been done differently to address this situation?
Well, I believe the things that you're looking for is saying quality of life issues inside the homes and those types of things don't really fall into criminal law. So we wouldn't normally be involved in those types of things. That would normally be a property maintenance code or code enforcement, that type of thing. We would assist if need be. On occasion, we're called by code enforcement if they're delivering some sort of a violation or something, or people become irate or they need the intervention. Then police, of course, are called and respond immediately. I have radios, they call us, and we respond immediately to them. But most of that stuff, again, is on a code side of things. It's not a law enforcement.
Because in Plainfield, it's their chief of police who's in charge of that, and then they contact, they work with the code enforcement. But since they have more rights, that they're the lead on that. So in our community, the lead is code enforcement?
It's possible, and again, I don't know exactly what their form of government. I know they have a Department of Public Safety. It's possible that their code enforcement is under the police department. I don't know, and maybe that's the reason why it's in that division. I'm not sure. I know they have a fire division, they have a police division under the Public Safety Department.
Who keeps the rental registration list? Because under the ordinance, it's supposed to be under the Director of Environmental Control.
Environmental control. No, we're starting that under Diane's department, which we're starting the rental registration.
Okay, because that's not how the ordinance read it, but, so her office has the list of rental registrations. Okay. Now, one of my big gripes is rent control. If a landlord breaks our ordinance, what do we do?
whoever would be responsible for that would issue a city summons or issue a complaint to a municipal court, and then it would be heard from there. It wouldn't really be a law enforcement function. Whether, again, just like code enforcement, if they go and the grass isn't cut, they would issue a summons. If we have a parking violation, we would issue. So it depends on an individual department, and I am not familiar with that ordinance because it does not fall under the purview of the police department.
This is I'm sorry, but this is something that we really need to address. So if a landlord raises the rent, that's against our rent control laws. If a landlord raises the rent 50% more than the given rent, against our laws, and the tenant feels that there's no other recourse but to leave, and that tenant doesn't come with a complaint, what happens to that landlord?
I'm sorry, I just have to say something. If that is not brought up to the rent leveling board, how are they going to know that that's happening? I mean, I'm just asking.
Whose responsibility is it to then control, to have enforcement of the rent leveling board? If someone doesn't cut their grass, we don't sometimes need the neighbor to complain. Sometimes we see it. Or what do we have to do to make sure? Because I'm pretty sure that we're helping out people right now in human services that have been displaced because the landlord is violating our ordinance. And a good example, Penn Street. The situation on Penn Street right now. The landlord violated our code, rent control laws. What is being done?
That does not fall under my purview at all. I have no idea, sir.
Who enforces our code enforcement laws?
Code enforcement, we have a code enforcement department. They handle code violations. Violations of the rent control ordinance, there's a rent control board in the city.
What if a tenant doesn't know there's a rent control board, or our rent control board has been working not in person, only on Zoom, and we do have a digital divide in this community, and not everyone has access? What do,
The rent leveling board meets in person? No, they're still in Zoom, Diane? Okay, but to your point with cutting grass and stuff, that's something I can see and observe. And to the council president's point, if I raise the rent on a tenant, I wouldn't know unless that tenant comes in and says, hey, Mike Green raised the rent $1 million on me. There's no other way. I can see, anybody objectively can see that the grass is not being cut.
maybe we have a solution, because it seems that there's a big problem. And maybe the solution is, because I think we didn't go far enough when we updated the certificate of occupancy. Maybe with the continuous certificate of occupancy, we could add in rentals besides sales. And the township of Brick has done it. The government strategy report that we received recommended it and said that Tom's River had the same program. They added in rentals along with the sales. We could use Brick. Brick basically has the same population that we have. So they were able to do it, and I could send you the ordinances. I have copies of the ordinances. We could add in rentals. In this way, whenever there's a new rental, we could see how much the rent was adjusted. And we could see if the landlord is breaking the law, that if the last tenant was paying X amount, a new tenant comes in, we have a rental registration, we know how much they're paying, we could see if the landlord is breaking the law or not. And then we don't have to put the burden on some tenants who are afraid to come into, a lot of them are afraid to come into the government buildings and state what's actually happened. So I don't think just because that those people shouldn't be protected by the law, just because they're not actively pursuing that someone is actually breaking the law. I think we need something better than that. We need to be proactive, and that's what the whole thing with the government strategy report was, saying that we need to be proactive in this situation. We did create the rent control. We did bring back the rent leveling board, but we're still having these problems, and I foresee more problems happening if we don't address this. So I don't think it's that hard to add in that one component to that law, to add in not just for the sales, but also for tenancy, for changing of tenancies, that we're gonna have to have an inspection and a renewal of paperwork. Because it seems that we have a crisis in this town with evictions. And it seems that the burden is not just falling on the residents, but it's also falling on our community, our services. When someone is evicted, do we ask them, when they come in to our facilities for help, do we ask them these questions? How much was the rent raised? Or do we actually go, do we investigate to see if the law was violated?
When someone is evicted, they usually go to landlord-tenant court, and that's the county, and they would be evicted by the judge. For good cause, normally, I assume that's why the judge would kick them out, probably for not paying rent.
And then like a town like your town, Newark, New Jersey, we have, right to counsel, where they actually pay counsel to represent their residents because they care about their residents. So Newark has that, and they won in court, and so does Jersey City. They put that on the books also, right to counsel. We had $16 million. We could have put a little portion aside to protect some of these residents, to give them right to counsel. We could have developed that, and we could still develop something like that. We could think about protecting our residents, especially after the crisis of COVID, and that money was allocated specifically to address that crisis. And a lot of these evictions are due to that crisis. What are we doing to investigate it on those landlords? How many landlords have been fined for breaking this law since it's been on the books?
I would have to get the number,
Yes, I would
see
have
if
no
anyone, yeah.
None, most likely, right?
I have no
Not sure.
idea.
I'd like
Again,
to
that's
investigate and
not even
see.
for us to enforce.
Do you know?
Mayor, I have a couple questions.
Okay,
DJ?
get closer to the mic.
The first thing, I mean, we have a lot of rental units, obviously. Right? Are we at 100%? Is every rental unit in the city of Perth Amboy registered? That's the first question. Wait.
I'll have to look at that.
All right. The second thing, whose responsibility is it in the city government to make sure a landlord is registering his business, his rentals? And what is the penalty for not registering? And what is the penalty, and I understand my colleague, what he was trying to say, what his point he was trying to make is, let's say I'm Councilman Torres' landlord. No, Councilman Torres is my landlord. And next month, he raises my rent 15%, right? What's the penalty for that? What's my recourse? Who do I go see? Who do I make that phone call to?
Do you have the ordinance in front of you there, or
All right,
not?
all right,
What the
wait,
penalty is, I'm not
let
sure.
me just keep, you don't have to answer it right now. So also, all right, now, I'm selling my four-family house, right, that's registered in my name, right? And I'm selling it to Mr. Torres. Now, I was a landlord at that location, but he's the new landlord at that location. How do we know he's gonna register? I'm registered, but I'm not longer the landlord anymore. He is. So how is he could just go to me, hey, Mr. Puccio, I ain't going to do that. So, there's an ability to slip through the cracks. So where's the enforcement end of this? And who does it fall upon? I mean, we're talking about educating the people, but what city entity is the enforcement end of this? The landlord that raises the rent. If he's not in compliance, is there a penalty? Or does he have a certain amount of time? Does Mr. Torres have a certain amount of time after I sell him my four-family apartment house to register? Is there like a 30-day period? Now, the sales, real estate sales do come through the tax department because they're gonna start collecting taxes from Mr. Torres now.
And that certificate of occupancy.
So what I'm asking is, are all those questions I just asked, where does it leave us?
I think Mr. Opel.
So
Okay.
a few different areas. There's the rent leveling board, which if there's a tenant who feels that their rent was increased in excess of the amounts allowable under the rent control ordinance, they can file a complaint with the rent control board. That's what it's set up for, and the rent control board will hear that complaint and decide on it. That's the extent of the rent control board's powers under the ordinance. Practically speaking, I think, the complaint can be lodged with Ms. Roman's office. She's, I believe, the secretary to the rent leveling board. Sharon Huberman is the chair of that board. So there's a way. I mean, if the person's going to lodge a complaint, there's a way that they can logistically do that. As to penalties, there are some penalties that are available to the board that are set forth in their ordinance. It's similar to that of a, municipal summons for a code violation.
But who issues that, Mr. Opel? If they're in violation, who's gonna be the person that signs? If they're in violation, Sharon Huberman can't do it. She can't write the summons. It would either have to come from code enforcement.
There would have to be a court process for violations of that chapter. So someone would have to issue a summons. If there's a
Right, somebody
violation.
would
The
have
rent
to issue-
leveling board, they don't have the same
Authority.
threshold, I guess, also. I mean, it's not a board where, it's not a judicial proceeding in front of the board.
There's no middle ground, you said straight from rent leveling to the courts?
The ordinance doesn't provide a mechanism. So the rent leveling board, in short, they can't fine somebody. They can just order that the rent not be increased to that level. It can only be increased in accordance with the ordinance. That's not a provision for them. And I have just before they cross my mind, I haven't pulled up. In the scenario you gave where you're selling your home to the councilman, prior to any transfer, we recently amended this ordinance, I think over the summer, maybe a little bit earlier than that. Section 181 of the city code. Nobody can transfer any residential dwelling or any commercial or industrial dwelling unless they get a certificate of code compliance prior to the
Right.
transfer. So that would be the mechanism whereby if you go into
Right,
a
they need
residential
their C of O.
property, yeah, if you go into a residential property, you would know, the city would have a record that the property is being transferred. They would know that, they would see if hopefully the current landlord would be registered. They'd be able to tell if they weren't. If they weren't, they could issue a violation to the current property owner. I think that would be the appropriate course of action in that instance, and I think that would put the new owner on notice that they'd have to get registered if they weren't planning on doing so. And then finally, as Mr. Green stated, the rental registration is handled through Ms. Roman's office. The penalty for not registering, you would get a municipal summons, you'd have to go to court, but the maximum penalty is $250 if someone's found not to have registered their property in accordance with the city
But
code.
is there a period of time, like when we made the transaction, does it say the new owner has to do it within 30 days? He already knows, because when he got the C of O, he was told, hey, you gotta register. So is it,
I don't think there's a
Time
grace
frame.
period. I think that if you own the property, you have to register.
oh, okay, all right.
That's the way it reads. There's no amount of time that's given for a new owner upon
Gotta
transfer
be
to
done
register.
when you take hold of the property, you have to.
You can, yeah.
To comply with it.
Right.
It seems like we're limited because a lot of our ordinances are kind of antiquated and needs to be revisited. And using Newark is a great example of having some progressive ordinances. So we could easily add on the tenancy to our already existing continuous certificate of occupancy, the same way Brick Township does, or the way that the government strategy report recommended that we follow Tom's River. They have a similar program also. And what we could do is we could beef up our rental registration, do something similar to Newark, and have a landlord identity registration. This way, the landlords can't hide behind LLCs, and we will have to have a name and an address of an actual person and not a corporation. So these are things that we could do to start addressing this, so we could actually know who the landlords are and know when tenancies are changing. But we might need to revisit of who's actually in charge of this list and if they're going to be proactive into seeing if the landlords are compliant. Because it doesn't seem fair that a tenant has to go to the rent leveling board to make a complaint to protect themselves if the law is being broken. This isn't a civil case. This is a criminal case, and the landlord is breaking the law. So why is it up to now the tenant to go and to defend themselves? Why isn't the administration, or can we even have a more proactive prosecutor? Can we do something that's more proactive to make sure that we're protecting our residents, especially after COVID?
I'll note that the city already has a landlord identity registration under the rent control ordinance. That's first. Second, I'm not downplaying the severity of, not complying with municipal ordinances, but they're not criminal. A violation of the city code is not a criminal action. The city can't legislate it into one. I think that, to your point, I think if the council wanted to consider some additional measures with regard to, change in tenancy, in addition to change of ownership, that's something that's definitely within the council's purview, but, there's no mechanism to convert what is, a municipal ordinance violation into a crime. That's not really how it's set up.
I think, don't we have for some of the violations, possibility of fines and prison time? I think Newark has 90 days possibility of jail and fine, and I think we have the same thing also for the violation of rent control laws.
It's in there. I mean,
So-
it's $500 or imprisonment.
Imprisonment.
But it's not, the violation is not, it's not a crime. You can, in theory, I guess.
But meaning we can imprison someone, we could go above it, we could go more than a fine. We could up the fine, we could give someone 5 days in prison. What we could do, this is states so in our ordinance.
I think that's at the discretion of the judge if it gets to the point of a,
Yes, but-
of a code violation, but also my experience, being a former prosecutor, that, I can't recall too many times of judges sentence someone to prison time or to, imprisonment for a code violation. Usually, I think that's kind of reserved for scenarios where you have multiple offenders.
Yes, if we have one landlord who has multiple offense continue, then maybe we could go down that route. But we would never know if we're not pursuing this. And we would never know how many times the landlord has violated the law.
Well, the court would. If they were actually in front of the municipal court, the court would, they keep track of numbers of offenses and things like that. This isn't something the city can say, you have to go to jail. This is a judicial proceeding. If there's a code violation and the penalty provides for the possibility of imprisonment, it's up to the judge to level that sentence.
I
So.
totally understand that. It's up to the judge. But sometimes if we give information, if our administration gives information to the judge of how many times that landlord violated the law, how many times, how many properties, along with that, then the judge could make a better decision. I definitely,
But if I may, I also feel that you're saying that we shouldn't leave it to the tenant to go to someplace to make a claim about the landlord. But I think that was the purpose of having the rent leveling board and also their ordinance, is just to provide our residents with something where they can go to because of what happened in New Brunswick Avenue at that time. And I think what we are a little off here is having the information out there to all our residents to say, because what happened in Penn Street, it was like I find out a week before they were going to court. And they were already had a court date. I think if our residents were a little more informed that we have this venue for them to go and speak to someone who's going to guide them, I think it would have not taken it to the court.
But also, they were not able to go in person to Zoom, to rent leveling board meetings. Rent leveling board meetings are still being conducted solely in Zoom and not in person. Not all of our residents have access
Wow.
to Zoom, and I don't think that's fair to put that burden on residents, because even the library's not open at that time, so they can't even go to the library and use one of the free computers or something to go for those hours. So we're not giving them any options. We had $16 million. We could have put, even a fraction of that aside to help them to be able to have representation like other communities are doing who care about their residents. Landlords are breaking the law. What are we doing about it? Are we going to leave it just to the residents to come and make a complaint? If a landlord breaks the law, are we going to be proactive? Government strategy gave us a list of how to address it. I've been trying to get us to use this document and to follow it to address this. It seems that the problem is getting worse. So hopefully we could start off by adding in that tenancy for the certificate of occupancy, the same way it was recommended, and add in tenancy to that.
I can put that ordinance together and the council could consider that, absolutely.
This way we know now when a tenant leaves and they get they have to go through the process again, and then we could check to see if they raise the rent. Because what's happening now, and it was disheartening a while ago that someone sitting up here brought up how if landlords don't get the amount of money to fix their places, there's gonna be fires like the bad old days. But as everybody knows, when the Bronx was burning and Hoboken was burning and Jersey City was burning, it wasn't because the landlords couldn't afford to fix the places. They were trying to get rid of people. They were trying to clear out buildings. And the new way of doing it is by not making repairs. Let me not make a repair for 10, 15 years in a building and then have it condemned and make sure everybody's out of there. Then I'll make the repairs and quadruple the rent. So that's what we're going through right now, and everybody's watching it happen. We could do things to stop this. We could protect our residents. So today I wanted to find out what was some of the enforcement. And it seems that there really isn't that many. Besides, unless if a tenant brings it specifically to us and brings that case, that there is no mechanisms to go after these landlords. We should really reevaluate this, especially since our town is being marketed as an investment paradise, that the property values, that the properties sell for low and the rents are quite high. We really need to reevaluate what's happening in this community and if it's still going to be a community.
I would just say that, these leases are, in essence, private contracts between two people that they don't, unless the city owns the property or unless the city's engaged in a lease. I don't know how many of those properties there are, but the city's not often a party to these contracts. There's not always a mechanism, apart from the rent control ordinance, where the city can do some enforcement. I think we would, I think we would need some direction if, beyond the amendment that we discussed for the, certificate of code compliance for a change in tenancy. I think we would need some direction on what's envisioned by, what the city can do as far as enforcing without the city being made aware by one of the parties to the contract. I think, I'm not sure what the answer is on that end with regard to, raising rents above the amounts set forth in the rent control ordinance. I don't know how the city would ever become aware unless the tenant came and complained.
Well, unless we had a database of all the rentals, and if we checked annually that database, and if rentals, and then we could easily check to see how much amount was increased. And if an apartment jumped up $500, $1,000, then we could inquire, how did that happen? How did it go from that to that? And if you find out that they pushed out a resident to get in a higher rent, then that landlord was in violation of the law. Then we could find that landlord. And then they could have it on the books. You could have that violation against them. So if he makes a second violation, he would already have one. This way we could start paper trail. This way we could start having some type of oversight.
Anything else? Okay, let's continue. Ordinance, public hearing, 5 minutes maximum per speaker per ordinance. An ordinance of the City of Perth Amboy, County of Middlesex, New Jersey, authorizing the acquisition of the property designated on the tax maps on the City of Perth Amboy as Block 127, Lot 16, commonly known as 333 High Street, for public purposes pursuant to NJSA 48, column 12-5 and NJSA 20, column 3-1. Agenda. Public comment. Citizen may address the council on any matter of the agenda which does not have its own scheduled public hearing. Citizens shall be permitted to speak once for a maximum of 5 minutes. Reports. PKF O'Connor Davis submitted the report of audit for the years ended December 31st, 2022 and 2021. Colin Barczewski, tax collector, submitted the monthly report of collection for September 2023. NJ Division of Taxation submitted the 2023 certification of the tale of equalized valuations.
Council President, I'm sorry, that should be table of equalized valuations.
Oh, table.
Yeah,
Tail.
it's a typo, yeah.
Table. Ordinance, first reading, no public discussion. Number one, an ordinance to amend an ordinance entitled an ordinance designated restricted parking spaces for use by handicapped persons. Ordinance number 380-85, an amendment adopted July 2nd, 1985, also known as Chapter 255A, C of the Code of the City of Perth Amboy. And this is about additions and deletions. Number two, an ordinance to establish the honorary naming of Dorothy Street as Tyrone Fascio Way. Resolutions, R-499, 1023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3003 in the amount of $548.50 to 174 Hall Avenue LLC for property located at 425 Division Street. R 51023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3004 in the amount of $2,000 to Raritan Yacht Club for property located at 160 Water Street. R 5011023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3007 in the amount of $64.75 to New Beginnings Deliverance Temple, Inc. for property located at 338-340 Prospect Street. R 5021023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3009 in the amount of $1,638 to 975 High Street LLC for property located at 975 High Street. R 5031023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3010 in the amount of $2,246 to Quick Check Corporation for property located at 885-889 Cumberland Boulevard. R 504-1023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3018 in the amount of $1,024.75 to Richard Aponte for property located at 621 New Brunswick Avenue. R 505-1023, authorizing a refund of escrow balance docket number 3020 in the amount of $201 to Models High Street LLC for property located at 276 High Street. R 506-1023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3021 in the amount of $520.50 to at the Dolapo Oyespeso, that's a little hard, for property located at 431 Amboy Avenue. R 507-1023, authorizing a refund of the escrow balance docket number 3023 in the amount of $367 to Iris Pantoja for property located at 197 High Street. R 508-1023, authorizing a refund of escrow balance to docket number 3015 in the amount of $519.75 to Quito LLC for property located at 477 Brace Avenue. R 509-1023, authorizing a contract for the purchase of total lawn mowers to Storm Tractor Company in accordance with the state-approved MRESC Co-op number 65 MCES CCPS ENSNJ bid number 22/23-12 in the amount not to exceed $101,077.80. R 510-1023, authorizing settlement of the workers' compensation litigation via an order approving settlement in the matter entitled Kenneth Pebbles versus the City of Perth Amboy, CP number 2021-6250 for the amount of $18,900. R 511-1023, rescinding R 486-923 and reauthorizing the acceptance of an award from the State of New Jersey through the Department of Community Affairs for the Neighborhood Preservation Program, NPP, fiscal year 2023, NPP-ARP grant in the amount of $668,538. R 512-1023, certifying to the local finance board of the state of New Jersey that all members of the governing body have reviewed the sections of the annual audit entitled General Comments and Recommendation Governing Body Certification of the annual audit ending December 31st, 2022. R 513-1023, authorizing the insertion of revenue in the calendar year 2023 budget pursuant to NJSA 48, column 4-87, chapter 159, PL 1948 for the NPP-ARP grant in the amount of $735,391.80. This is $668,538, $38, $668,538 grant plus $66,853 with 80 cents matching funds. 14-1023, authorizing the insertion of revenue in the calendar year 2023 budget pursuant to NJSA 48, column 4-87, chapter 159, PL 1948, for the 2023 Safe and Secure Communities Grant in the amount of $32,400. R 515-1023, authorizing the insertion of revenue in the calendar year 2023 budget pursuant to NJSA 48, column 4-87, chapter 159, PL 1948, for the 2023 Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant in the amount of $23,474. R 516-1023, increasing the city of Perth Amboy fixed asset accounting and reporting threshold to $5,000. R 517-1023, authorizing refund of 15 handicap parking applications in the total amount of $1,500 due to denial by the police department. And we have communications. And we have closed session resolution R 498-1023, authorizing a closed session at the October 11, 2023 meeting to discuss workers' compensation litigation, Kenneth Pebbles versus the city of Perth Amboy. I need a motion, right? Or no?
Do we need to add personnel? I don't know if you got a response to the,
I didn't receive a response. We can add it. That's why it's not on there, but we can add it. I'll give an update on another personnel matter.
Okay.
There's not much to say, but we can add that.
So we can add a personnel
personnel matter, okay.
personal matter also to the resolution, and I need a motion to.
Move, second?
I'm sorry.
I moved
He
it.
moved it, I seconded.
Haley seconded.
All right. Councilwoman Cruz?
Yes.
Councilman Puccio?
Yes.
Councilman Torres?
Yes.
Council President Tejeda?
Yes. Public portion, 5 minutes maximum per speaker. I need a motion to open to the public.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Ken Bell, 359 Brook Avenue. Mr. Green, a couple of months ago, you had a meeting with a retired police officer and his wife. Our broker showed up and cut sweatpants, sweatshirt. Is that a way that a broker or a city, somebody representing the city would come to a meeting and 45 minutes late, working cut-off shorts and a shirt? Is that proper attire for somebody to represent the city? Is that the way we go these days? We hire and give them millions of dollars? Question, on this broker's contract, if he cuts back on the insurance and saves the city any money, does he get a percentage of it?
No.
Okay, very good. Okay, there was a council meeting, I believe, in Patterson, where councilman pushed police officer. Right after that meeting, the mayor said he should be resigned. And over here, we have the same type of incident. We have cameras. We have an audio tape of one of our employees assaulting a police officer. The question is, what is going to happen and what's the pressure that's going to happen to the city employee? Don't we have ethics, personnel, property in our manuals? Only because I believe that this employee is a vote getter, that this is why we're here, and nothing's gonna happen. Something's gonna happen when you act as an employee of the city and assault a police officer. And I understand it should be going through the courts and everything else like that, but an act of conduct, something should be done. And something should be done. It's a serious matter. It's a very serious matter. It's amazing here that it took 6 months to investigate a female officer for confiscating a bicycle. And that went to the Attorney General's. This case should go to the Attorney General and out of the hands of the city. The Attorney General's office should be investigating, and there's cameras, there's audio, and everybody's seen it. So the question is here, something has to be done to respect for our police officers. If a city employee can get away with doing this, where's the respect Where is the respect for the police officer? Our mayor's got his picture at City Hall that he's police director. He's the big honcho as police director. Well, what's going on here? Are you going to protect the police officers, or are you going to protect somebody that works on campaigns? And we know they work on serious campaigns. So the question here, what is going to happen? The Attorney General's office should get this case. The videotapes should be released so the public can see it. It's out there. If this was the other way around, they would be out all over the place. We need to respect police officers, and it needs to be done in this town. It was brought up about loud music and loud stuff, that quality of life. Well, this was a quality of life call. And who was violating it? If the facts are the facts, it was city employees. Quality of life. Mr. Torres brought it up, Mr. Puccio brought it up. Well, the police officers were doing their job, which they were told to do. I listened to when the chief of police was told they want to enforce quality of life. Well, there is quality of life problem. It's on camera. So somebody has to do something. It's not about getting votes and about illegal housing. It's amazing that we can find these people to get them to vote, but we can't get them to rent control and stuff like that that needs to happen. This is not a hard project to do. It's amazing that we can find all these things. Code enforcement relies on people telling them that. What does code enforcement find? What does code enforcement find? I could drive down my block and pick out houses, and it's easy. You see a one-family, two-family. Where's the permits? Where's the permits to cut a driveway? Where's the permits to put a second family in? Where are those permits? I can sign it. Because I opened it a lot of times. They told me, no permits for that house. No permits there. Well, how do they make it a two-family? So this
Thank
city is
you.
going to be liable
Thank
because
you.
there's no permits for that house when something happens, and you're going to be held liable.
Thank you.
Good evening. Joseph Voss, 317 Rector Street, Perth Amboy, New Jersey. Mr. Ballard and I agree on that 100%. This is something that I brought up at the last council meeting, and that's why I'm back here today. So I just want to talk about representative democracy. That's what this country has, and that's what this board is. It's where representatives are elected to serve the needs of the people. They're expected to be accountable and responsive to the people that elected them. The free and impartial media is here to report the decisions, the actions, and inactions of government, to ensure the survival of our republic and our local government. I have come to these meetings for nearly a decade, and over that period of time, I've seen the same elected officials that campaign on transparency and community input skirt and ignore their responsibilities and their obligations to the people who have elected them. What I mean is this, that they this board initially restricted the time that the public could speak, and now they blatantly ignore the public and the questions and the concerns that they bring forward. Bill Petrick, the former council president, prided himself in speaking over people. You should know that, Ms. Milady Tata. He belittled the public and other members of the city council. There were times when Bill Petrick would do the same thing to you. He would interrupt you or stop you from speaking. He would often act unilaterally as the council president and not seek the input of other council members on this board here. And you guys are a board. No one member has more power than any other. You just preside over the meeting. Your shunning the public and their questions was on full display last council meeting, when the city council president, you, and the law director as well, refused to adhere to Robert's rules of order by not polling the council to ask for more time for me. The first page of your agenda clearly sets forward that if I request more time, you are required to poll the council. And Mr. Opal over there said he'll do nothing. He has to do nothing, even though his job is to oversee the hearing right here. Anyway, instead of turning over a new leaf on the practices of Bill Petrick. Last week, Ms. Tejada, you chose to embrace those practices of this Petrick. You shunned the public and their questions, and, well, excuse me, I lost my place. Instead, the city council and the mayor continue to stonewall the public and ignore their questions. With that said, I want to ask the questions again about Jose Espaillat, a city employee, your political operative that harvests votes for your campaigns and who assaulted a police officer on video. How was he allowed to return from work after this act of violence against a police officer, which was caught on camera? Why has he not been suspended? If Ms. Morales' husband had done the same thing, would he have been suspended, and vice versa? Mr. Puccio, if Mr. Espaillat assaulted you, and I ask this question for you, Madam President, because I can't speak to him directly. Mr. Puccio, if Mr. Espaillat assaulted you in the call of duty as an officer, do you think he should have been able to return to work? Mr. Torres, you advocated for a civilian review board for the police. You've seen the video. What is your take on Officer Cruz's interaction with Mr. Espaillat prior to Mr. Espaillat assaulting him? Shouldn't Helman Cava, as the police director and mayor, be required to explain why Mr. Espaillat, his political operative, is allowed to come back to work after being released from county jail after assaulting one of his officers as a police director? Why is it that he's treating some employees different than others? What does he do for the city? And what did he do for your campaign? I welcome your responses, not just blank stares.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Any answers to the questions?
You cannot speak on that case.
How you doing? My name is Kenneth Pajak, 1806 Kleins Mill Road, Quakertown, Pennsylvania. I was a police officer here for over 30 years, a retired lieutenant. I've had some issues coming up with my wife's health benefits. I've sat down, I tried getting a meeting with the mayor with my wife. Got turned away a couple times, would never make the time to meet us. He did sit me down with Mr. Green and the liaison. We had our meeting, nothing got settled. I did what they told me to do. I went to Social Security in Pennsylvania. They overlooked what I had. They said, one, it's a contract issue, which I am grandfathered in. My wife is covered till she's age 65. They said what they should also look at is what Cigna did is borderline illegal. I have a letter here from a neurologist that my wife is seeing. She has 7 spots now on her liver, her kidney, and other parts of her body, which is why I'm here, is essential that she starts getting the medical coverage that she needs. We're already $10,000 in the hole with doctors that are not being paid. What I got from this is from the doctor's office, from the bill. We have submitted the Medicare denials to you showing the patient only has Part A benefits. A supervisor told me the patient must take Part B. Cigna is performing an illegal action by stating the patient must take Medicare Part B benefits. As of this time, the patient still only has Medicare Part A benefits, which only covers hospitalizations. There are forms attached, should be processed with interest as soon as possible, as they are almost 1 year old. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. This is a neurological group out of Pennsylvania, where we're at. I'm just bringing this up because my wife, like I said, she does need medical care now. She needs to continue some of her doctors where she was getting her pain shots and other shots she's been getting. They've denied her now because they're owed so much money. She actually hasn't had them now in over 6 months. She's in a lot of pain. That's why she's not here tonight. I'm asking either the council to look into this, or can somebody get me that meeting with the mayor, with my wife, to go over everything. I have all the documentations, bills. When Cigna was paying, they're picking bills what to pay and what not to pay. Some they're paying, the cheaper ones, the other ones they're not. My wife does have Part A with the government. It pays hospitalization, which is a big part, considering during COVID, she was in the emergency room 3 times, which means Cigna only paid 20%. I'm not asking a lot, but I gave over 30 years of my life to this city. I was born and raised here. My mom's 98, still lives here. My sister's 70, was a retired police officer. She still lives here. That's all I'm asking for, is that somebody please just give us some attention on this. Thank you.
Vince Macchio, I live at 215 Sheridan Street. Can I comment concerning Mr. Torres bringing up the issues concerning not only the housing, but as it relates to rent. I'm not going to discuss any specifics about rent, our review of any cases or anything, but I just want to offer that you can review, or the media can review the minutes and they can review the actual instances where we reviewed cases. I'm not speaking on behalf of the chairperson or anybody, just on myself. You can review the decontrol forms and you can see, you can gather how rents will be rising exponentially in violation of when this rent control was started in '83, even before. So if you review that, you can see that. I'm someone who's had various jobs in social work. One of those was working at that building in Plainfield. That building was a brownstone, had a character to it, but it had a need to rehabilitate it. So the city has, what I understand, has adopted the fair housing agreement whereby they'll rehabilitate a certain amount of units within this city. But beyond that, in terms of actual looking at the landlords and the tenants, the landlords has an investment in that house. Or that unit. It's an investment that causes problems at times because the the rental units need to be upgraded. There needs to be new toilets. There needs to be new infrastructure. Water resources have to be upgraded. There's no question about that. But to put the complete responsibility in that Plainfield building, if you looked at that case over a month ago, those people would like to have had that unit repaired while they're still in there and not be put on the street. That's my perspective in trying and realize we are volunteers. We have reviewed cases. And the point is, if you want to look at it, if the media wants to look at it, start covering the rent board meetings. It's up to the council if you would like to demand or have within our future meetings that you would like to have personal meetings, that we would have to meet here or some other facility within the township, within Perth Amboy, the city of Perth Amboy. I'm sorry. So I hope that you understand my coming forward is Perth Amboy's, and there is no way that you cannot negate the fact that this population in this city has expanded. If you look at the demographic materials or the details, you have to know that we have new populations through climate change, through the fact that people immigrated from other countries into. So that's the reality. If you want to look at the possibility of creating, and the people applied for zoning boards in this city to create new specific housing, such as the Hanson building or something else to provide decent units for people to live in, that's an investment or that's the time. I'm not here to discuss that, but the fact is you have to admit, and I appreciate Mr. Torres realizing that if you move a person out of a unit, you're going to have opportunities for something else that's viable and that makes sense for that person to live, not to be treated. And if you read the original rent leveling board thing in '83, the rules that were set up, it said, this is a police action based on the need to control the exponential increases of rent. If you deal with it from that perspective, then you need to have stronger rent control. I would just offer in my 14 seconds, go closer than Jersey City, go to New Brunswick and look at their rent control board law. We need to upgrade it and look at a local community. That's our government, Middlesex County government there.
Thank
Okay?
you. Anybody else? Seeing none, I need a motion to close public session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to go to closed session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. When we come back, we'll close this meeting and then we'll start the council meeting.
We'll wait for you,
All in-
Madam President.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion to adjourn the caucus meeting?
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.